Questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Suffering with record high inflation, and it's clear these Liberals have no plan to deal with it responsibly, except more of the same mismanagement that got us here in the first place, out of control spending. Even financial institutions like Scotiabank have warned that their continued spending drives higher inflation. You can't spend inflation away. Isn't it true, Mr. Speaker, life is continuing to get worse, not better for Canadians under these Liberals, and they have no idea how to deal with it?
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for her question, and that side ran on a platform to spend even more deficit spending than we did. On this side, we have an affordability plan, Mr. Speaker. We created the Canada Child Benefit, which is right now putting $13,666 into the pockets of a single mother with 2 kids. We have indexed OAS and are increasing it. We are making sure there is a $500 home credit for people struggling with housing. Mr. Speaker, no plan for affordability on that side, a clear plan on this side.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, one idea is to reduce federal taxes at the pump to help ease the high cost of gas. Provinces are doing it, other countries are doing it, even the U.S. is considering doing it. What did the Liberals say when we made this suggestion? They said no. Whether it's lowering taxes on gas or things like removing restrictions and mandates, these Liberals always say no to good ideas. Why are the Liberals always so slow and reluctant to do the right thing when it comes to helping Canadians?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Sure, we are, of course, doing the right thing. That means actually working to address the supply constraints that have evolved since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Canada has committed to increase its production of oil and gas by 300,000 barrels by the end of the year. We are working in partnership with our friends in the United States, with Brazil, and with a number of other countries to stabilize global energy prices and to ensure that we are actually addressing affordability on a go-forward basis.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, under these Liberals, murders are at a 30-year high. We're seeing shootings and death increase. This weekend in Toronto is another sad example. But we shouldn't be surprised. The same minister who's busy misleading Canadians on the Emergencies Act is the one in charge of public safety. Liberals implementing gun bans while at the same time letting violent criminals into our communities is illogical and dangerous. Why won't these soft-on-crime Liberals do something to protect our streets and start by making sure gangsters and drug dealers stay behind bars?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, if that member had actually read Bill C-21, she sees that we're taking organized crime head-on by raising maximum sentences for illegal gun smugglers. She'd see that we're addressing the alarming concerns around handgun violence by introducing a national handgun freeze. She'd see that we're also addressing the alarming trend around the connection between intimate partner violence as well as with guns by the introduction of red flag log protocols, Mr. Speaker. And the only thing Conservatives can offer is making AR-15 assault-style rifles legal again. They should come to this chamber with more ideas.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Liberals, if you commit a crime with a gun, you get to do your time at home. How is that protecting communities, Mr. Speaker? But you know what? Everything these Liberals touch is a disaster, whether it's the soft-on-crime and often misunderstood public safety minister, or a heritage minister who's taking away Canadians' online freedoms, or a minister of foreign affairs who invites her delegates to party with the Russians, or a finance minister trying to spend her way out of inflation. It's all a disaster, Mr. Speaker. Isn't it true? Canadians are much worse off today than they were 7 years ago, and it's all because of their terrible Liberal policies.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as we near the session, I understand that the party opposite is continuing to try to obstruct and search and cast aspersions in a number of different places. The reality is, over the last 7 years, we have seen our economy grow. We've seen the investments that have been made across the board to help lift Canadians up. We've seen a record number of Canadians be lifted out of poverty. We're way ahead of our poverty reduction targets. This government continues to be focused, Mr. Speaker, on delivering results for Canadians. I understand that the opposition is searching for attack lines as they troll from subject to subject to subject. We stay focused on getting things done for Canadians.
Député de Mégantic-L'Érable.
Monsieur le Président, on attend encore les...
Mr. Speaker, we're still waiting for results. Let's summarize. The Liberal government's response to the cost of living. The Minister of Finance announced with great fanfare she'd do nothing. Gas prices are at historic highs. The Minister of the Environment is pleased. Citizens camp outside Passport Canada offices. The minister didn't anticipate that after 2 years of a pandemic, Canadians would want to travel. The list goes on and on. It's time to end this spiral of chaotic Liberal incompetence. Who will have the courage to stand up to the Prime Minister? The Honourable Minister for Tourism. When it comes to affordability for Canadians, it's clear that on the government side, we've created the child tax benefit and the Conservatives voted against. We set up supports for the tourism sector. The Conservatives voted against them. We have been here to support seniors, workers, single-parent families. The Conservatives vote against it. The economy is in full swing. We're here to help Canadians. The Conservatives are just trying to get some snappy lines for Twitter. The federal fiasco is becoming dangerous. At this point, the police have had to intervene in lineups at passport offices. And they're not just managing people's anger, they're answering questions on behalf of federal employees. Enough with this. A crisis can't be managed from 8 to 4, Monday to Friday. How is it possible that offices are not open 7 days a week with extended hours? We're in a state of crisis. When will this government wake up? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Honourable Member for his question. As we are all aware, after 2 years of travel restrictions, Canadians are travelling again, and there's increased demand and volume for passports, and that's why the focus of the Minister and officials has been to make sure that Canadians do receive their passports. This is why we are triaging lines at every Service Canada location in urban and metropolitan areas. That is why we've increased our staff by over 600 to serve Canadians, and that's why we've added additional resources to our MP lines and to other call-in lines to ensure that we reach Canadians and that they get the documents they need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. While the government's not doing its job in the passport offices, MPs are being inundated with calls for help from citizens. On Friday, all MPs' offices were notified, or rather our offices were notified, that the federal government was cutting services to elected officials intervening to help people get their passports. Imagine that. They're doing nothing to help people, and now they're preventing us from helping them instead. Then we found out this morning that that email was a mistake. What amateurishness. People are paying for the minister's incompetence, and it is unprecedented. When will they stop improvising, making it up as they go, and open their offices evening and weekends until the crisis is finally resolved?
Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for his question and all of the colleagues in this House who are advocating for constituents who have urgent travel needs. Mr. Speaker, employees from Service Canada have worked tirelessly throughout this pandemic to serve Canadians, and they've been performing their services overtime and every weekend. As a matter of fact, on the June 24th and July 1st long weekend, employees will be working to make sure that Canadians receive their documents. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, with regard to the MP line, an additional 50 resources have been added, with another 40 being trained to make sure that we can address the increased demand and volume to assist those constituents. Mr. Speaker, we are here to serve Canadians together in this House. Thank you.
Le député de Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie.
Oh boy, Mr. Speaker, that's not reassuring. Listen, Mr. Speaker, life is getting more and more expensive. Families are on the verge of losing their homes. Children are going to school hungry. The crisis is hitting hard, and families are paying the price. The Liberals answer a $7 tax credit. $7. They couldn't be more out of touch. This is a slap in the face to workers, seniors, to children. People need help. The NDP has proposed solutions. Will the Liberals double the GST tax credit and increase the child benefit to actually help struggling families? The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, what the NDP is putting forward is insincere and false. If we just look at the Canada Child Benefit, a single parent family will receive $660 more. That's not $7. It's more than $1,300. Now, when it comes to daycare services in Edmonton, a mother or father can get $10,000. It's not $7, it's $10,000. They should check their facts and not make things up for the House.
Mr. Speaker, they keep talking about things that they were doing or should have been doing before inflation struck. The fact is, Canadians are worried about losing their homes, they're worried about feeding their families, and the Liberal plan is another $7 on the GST rebate. That's not a plan. That's a talking point for a government that's more concerned about inflation as a public relations problem than it is about an economic problem. A real plan would provide CERB debt relief, double the GST rebate, increase the Canada Child Benefit. So when is the Deputy Prime Minister going to kindly announce that plan?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's disappointing that the NDP continue to push this cynical and frankly disingenuous narrative that somehow Canadians are only getting $7 more in affordability supports. They know very well, Mr. Speaker, that in my own city of Edmonton, childcare benefits $10,000 this year, and the Canada Child Benefit, Mr. Speaker, in Vancouver, a mother with 2 children, $13,666. That's a lot more than $7, Mr. Speaker. The NDP need to stop playing for political points and tell the whole story.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister must be wearing industrial-grade noise-cancelling earphones to avoid hearing the calls from economists to cut her government's over-the-top spending. She knows that it's only adding gas to the inflationary fire. The Prime Minister has said that anything that has a hint of fiscal restraint is austerity. He axed Bill Morneau for wanting to get post-COVID spending under control. Is she worried that if she presents anything to the Prime Minister that remotely resembles a cut, that she might suffer the same fate of her predecessor, who went from Finance Minister Morneau to Finance Minister No More?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, let's take a look at the facts. The Conservatives ran on a platform to spend $168 billion. I'm glad they didn't get elected. That would have been simply irresponsible. But let's look at the economy, Mr. Speaker. Let's look at the fact that we have a GDP that grew 5.6% in Q1. This fall again, S&P and Moody's affirmed our AAA credit rating. 3.5 million jobs recovered since the worst part of the pandemic, ahead of the United States, and the lowest unemployment rate at 5.1% since 1976. The economy's doing well. The Conservatives don't like it, but we sure do.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Keep trying to change the channel, but these Spend EP Liberals don't, won't, or can't understand that their obsession with spending is fueling inflation and hurting Canadians. Doug Porter, chief economist at BMO, said fiscal policy has every bit as much a role to play in dampening inflation as does monetary policy, and fiscal policy should definitely not get a pass in the inflation fight. Conservatives have been saying cut discretionary spending, give Canadians a break at the pumps. Those are good starting points. The question is, when will this Minister of Finance stop fueling inflation and instead start fighting it?
Honourable Minister of Tourism.
I invite the members of the opposition, and that member in particular, to vote with us the next time we have a piece of legislation in this House that's actually designed to improve the lives of Canadians and make their lives more affordable. The Conservatives have voted against every single measure that we've put on the floor of this House to make life more affordable, Mr. Speaker, including C2, including the Canada Child Benefit, including making sure that OAS payments are indexed. Mr. Speaker, they are all talk, no action. On this side, we're focused on affordability for Canadians.
L'honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Monsieur le Président, le sujet numéro 1.
Mr. Speaker, the #1 subject of concern to every Canadian is inflation, and this Liberal government is responsible for increasing it. It's not just the Conservatives saying it. Yesterday, Scotiabank's chief economist, Jean-François Perrault, said the government's high level of budgetary expenditures is leading to an unnecessarily large decrease in private spending. In short, the government doesn't know how to manage, and it's hurting the economy. Is this government finally going to be responsible when there's inflation and curb its spending? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the honourable member voted for or against the Conservative plan to have a $168 billion deficit during their election campaign. But on this side, we have made sure that the Canada Child Benefit is indexed to inflation. We have reduced taxes for the middle class twice. We've increased old age security and introduced a tax cut. And Conservatives are voting against Canadians, and we're voting for them. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, at every hour, in every riding, and I'm sure it's true in all 338 ridings, citizens are desperate and they're calling us about passports. Again, over the weekend, a nurse had to take time off instead of going to take care of 6 people and is waiting in line to have access to passports in Laval. Police officers had to be sent to calm the discontent of citizens. I'm proud to be a Canadian, but when I see this in our country, a G7 country, not a third world country, why did the government wait so long and end up creating this crisis? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll thank the honourable member for his question. But as he is aware, as many in this House, travel restrictions being lifted, Canadians are beginning to travel again. But the department did plan for it. As of September last year, over 600 new employees were added to Passport Canada services, Mr. Speaker. And in addition to that, every Service Canada office is receiving applications at this time. Every passport counter in this country is open to serve Canadians. Over 96% of applications that are processed in person are receiving their passports within 10 days. That is better than the international standards that are out there. We will continue to do everything we can to make sure Canadians receive their documents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Bellechasse-Lismay-Lévis.
Mr. Speaker, to get a passport, people have to bring their tent and spend the night on the sidewalk. That's happening here in Canada, a G7 country. Nothing is going right. It used to process 90,000 requests before COVID. We need to authorize the return to work to employees on site and extend working hours in all offices. Can the minister move away from her scripted lines and give us a real answer? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to remind the honourable member that our public servants have been working weekdays, overtime, and weekends since travel restrictions have been lifted to ensure that Canadians are receiving their passports. Over 360,000 passports have been issued since April of this year, Mr. Speaker, and just last week, nearly 48,000 passports were issued to Canadians. We are continuing to make sure that service lines are triaged, that we're reaching seniors, people with disabilities, unique employment needs, and humanitarian and compassionate issues that require emergency documents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable député de Bellechasse-Lismay-Lévis.
Mr. Speaker, the price of groceries went up by nearly 10% in April. This is the 5th month in a row where the price of food went up by over 5%. Gas is over $2 a litre across the province. In the Greater Quebec City area, housing prices went up by over 21% over last year, with salaries increasing at about 3.3%. People are struggling. Can the Minister of Finance face Canadians and offer them real solutions? The Minister for Tourism. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are raising issues about affordability, whereas their party has no plan for affordability for Canadians. And every time we try to do something to make life more affordable for Canadians, they vote against it. On this side of the House, we've been helping with the Canada Child Benefit, indexed it to inflation. We've increased OAS payments, and we have made sure that payments for daycare services will be indexed. We're working on affordability on the other side. They're really not. The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, citizens camped out all weekend in front of Service Canada offices to try to get a passport. In spite of the wind and the rain, they stayed outside all weekend trying to access this service. The worst part of it was they were camped outside empty offices that close at 4 p.m. on Friday for the weekend. Citizens spent the weekend seeing for themselves that no one from the federal government was there at work to help them. Does the minister just how insulting this is? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll thank the honourable member for her question. But, Mr. Speaker, Service Canada and passport centres throughout the country have been open overtime during the weekdays and on weekends. Yes, there are long lines, but Service Canada members are going into those lines, triaging emergency situations, and we are also encouraging those who do not have immediate travel to plan for their travel documents. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, today our minister is in a processing centre in Mississauga to see how we can increase efficiencies, manage workload, and address the increased demand and volume. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable député de Thérèse de Blainville.
C'est la fête nationale.
It's Quebec's national holiday this week. It's July 1st next week. That's 2 weeks in a row of public holidays that mark the beginning of summer. So there will be an increase in the number of people traveling and who will need their passport. In the midst of a crisis, what has the minister planned to do to deal with increased demand? And above all, has she planned for the fact that offices will have to be open even if it's a weekend or a holiday? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable member for a question which gives me the opportunity to let Canadians know that on the June 24th weekend and the July 1st weekend, passport centres will be open to serve Canadians. Public servants are working hard overtime and weekends to make sure that Canadians can travel this summer. We know they want to be out and about, and I want to thank our public servants who are working so tirelessly during the significant increase in demand, Mr. Speaker. We owe them a debt of gratitude. Thank you.
Honorable député de Thérèse de Blainville.
Monsieur le Président, ce gouvernement.
Mr. Speaker, this government can't predict anything, but also can't learn from its mistakes. This isn't the first time Service Canada has been in hot water. They were unable to reassure worried citizens at the beginning of the pandemic, unable to respond to victims of CERB fraud last year, unable to process EI claims over the winter, and now they can't process passports. For 2 years, nothing has worked, and nothing has changed. Does the minister understand that she's responsible?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'll thank the honourable member for her question, but Mr. Speaker, we owe tremendous gratitude to our public servants in this country who throughout the pandemic had Canadians' backs. They were able to distribute CERB quickly when it was needed. They were able to address the EI concerns of Canadians when they were laid off during the pandemic, and public servants worked night and day with new technologies and new methods to make sure that we reached Canadians when they needed it most. Mr. Speaker, since September 2021, we've hired over 600 new employees. We're hiring another 600 more. Every passport counter in this office is open, and Service Canada office to serve Canadians. Thank you.
The honourable member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, children and seniors are going hungry, and people can't go to work because they don't have enough money to put gas in their vehicle. Any MP who spends time in their riding or reads any of their emails knows how dire the cost of living crisis is. Yet, inflation continues to rise under this Liberal government. So are they just not listening to Canadians, or do they just not care?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, our government and I empathize with Canadians in the rising price of inflation, which is caused by Russia's illegal war in Ukraine, supply chain snarls, and the zero-COVID policy in China. But, Mr. Speaker, let us look at the facts, and I hope my colleagues will help me keep the other side accountable. When we passed the...
I know everybody wants to hear the answer, so I'll let the minister start from the top, and I'm sure everybody will be quiet so they can hear it all. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the honourable member's question. We emphasize with the rising costs of gas and of groceries, Mr. Speaker. That is why we have an affordability plan. But, Mr. Speaker, let us take a look at the record. When this side cut taxes on the middle class and raised it on the wealthiest 2 times, how did the Conservatives vote? They voted against. What did they do when we had the Canada Child Benefit, Mr. Speaker? They voted against. What did they do when we put money in for teachers, Mr. Speaker? The Conservatives voted against. What did they do when we rose money for seniors, Mr. Speaker? The Conservatives voted against. We vote for, they vote for against. We're here for affordability.
The Honourable Member for Provencher.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, too many Canadians are unable to afford basic essentials like gas and groceries, and this Liberal government keeps passing the buck. They refuse to admit that it's their own policies that are creating higher prices and exacerbating the situation. Will this government finally do the right thing, suspend the GST on fuels, and help lower the cost of groceries for Canadian families?
Here, the Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for his perspective on the matter, but let's actually take a look at the economic fundamentals of this country. Our GDP grew 5.6% in Q1, making us the second fastest growing economy in G7, on track to be the fastest growing economy in G7. AAA credit rating in place. We've recovered 115% of 3 million jobs lost, faster than our colleagues in the United States, and we have a trade surplus of over $6 billion. The Conservatives don't like that the economy's doing well. Canadians do, and that's why we will focus on affordability, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland-Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, recent studies would suggest that up to 1 in 5 Canadians do not have access to primary care. In Nova Scotia, there's 95,000 people without primary care. The president of the Canadian Medical Association has stated that what is clearly coming is the collapse of the current health care system. This Prime Minister continues to talk about 7,500 healthcare providers. None have materialized. When is this government of inaction going to give Canadians the healthcare system they so deserve?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
I thank my honourable colleague for his question and for his collaboration on the Health Committee. Our government recognizes the importance of high-quality primary care, and also we acknowledge that many Canadians are still struggling to access the care they need in a timely manner. Going forward, as outlined in Budget 2022, our government will remain focused on advancing the priorities of Canadians in health, including accessing the readily available high-quality primary care services we all deserve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question. Look forward to continuing to work on this with my colleague.
Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, airport delays continue to cause stress for so many travelers. There aren't enough airport workers, and the existing ones are overstretched and underpaid. But instead of simply paying airport workers fairly, this government is offering a bonus for workers who don't take vacation or sick time this summer. Seriously, in the midst of a pandemic, this minister is incentivizing workers who come to work sick. If he wants to get travelers moving again, he needs to scrap this program immediately and start paying workers fairly. Will he?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Speaker, I want to stress how urgent the situation is, that our government is working towards easing the delays at our airports. We have added more than 900 CATSA workers over the last few weeks. We have increased CBSA agents. We have adjusted many of our measures in collaboration with airports and airlines to ease airport delays. And we're working with workers to make sure who've been really working very hard over the last weeks, Mr. Speaker, to address this issue. There's a lot of work to be done, but we're committed to it, Mr. Speaker.
Well, member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, this government has a serious problem with transparency and accountability. I've asked in the House and through access to information for a full and comprehensive list of what sanctions have been imposed, when they were imposed, and what assets have been seized. This government has refused to provide any meaningful information. I need this information for my constituents and Canadians who are horrified by the illegal invasion of Ukraine. So I will ask again, Mr. Speaker, will the minister today guarantee that she'll provide a detailed description of who has been sanctioned, when, and what assets have been seized?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the honourable member for that question, and I think she raises a very important issue with respect to Canada's unprecedented sanctioning of Russia. It started when they invaded illegally Crimea. It has continued. Those sanctions have been strengthened at an unprecedented level as they illegally invaded Ukraine again. We continue to sanction the banking system, Mr. Putin and his inner circle, members of the Russian Security Council, as well as countless numbers of industries and individuals in Russia. We'll continue to do that till we draw them down to the point of no return.
Honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard, Saint-Michel. Mr. Speaker, investing in our recreational and sports infrastructure is the same thing as investing in people's health and well-being. Can the Minister give us an update on the government's work to offer Quebecers access to lasting and secure facilities to promote recreational and sport activities in our communities? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, we announced that there would be joint financial assistance with Quebec totaling $29 million for recreational and sports projects in the northern Quebec region. 5 Indigenous communities in the Nord du Québec region will benefit from quality infrastructure so they can practice their favorite activities in modern and accessible infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, as you know, we are always happy to invest in this type of project throughout Canada.
Member for Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, a couple of my riding recently returned from a trip to Greece, and when they tried to register for the Arrive Can app, they were sent the wrong verification code 8 times. When they tried to contact the CBSA to fix the issue, the CBSA told them that they didn't offer support relating to re-entering Canada. And I hear stories like this from my constituents all the time. The Arrive Can app is increasingly unnecessary and it's hopelessly broken. So when will the government commit to ending the chaos at our borders and our airports?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as my colleague knows, the Arrive Can app technology has helped to facilitate the measures we've taken at the border to protect the health and safety of Canadians throughout the pandemic. We continue to improve that technology by streamlining our processes, by making sure that Canadians have the smoothest experience at the border. I'm pleased to report to my colleague and all members in this chamber that compliance with the Arrive Can app is over 95% at the border. That's a signal that we've made progress, and I'm happy to work with my colleague on the individual case that was brought to his attention in his writing. Thank you very much.
For Thornhill.
Another week and more chaos at our airports. And even if you wanted to go anywhere, getting a passport is turning into a Canadian-made nightmare. The minister is claiming that there's a surge in application, but that's just not true. Over the last 10 weeks, the surge the government is talking about is only half of what it was before COVID. So if no one was laid off and no one at Passport Canada is working from home, will the minister responsible for the chaos tell us why anyone is still waiting for a passport they applied for in March?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for her question. Mr. Speaker, as we've discussed, there has been an increased surge in demand of passports with the ease of travel restrictions. In preparation for that, Mr. Speaker, the minister and officials arranged that 600 new employees were hired in September 2021, with an additional 600 being hired at this time. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, all Service Canada employees are back at work, whether they are teleworking or whether they are in an office, they are at work. And to disparage that is really questionable, Mr. Speaker. I really want to thank our public servants for everything that they've been doing for Canadians and continue to work during this time. Thank you.
For Thornhill.
Perhaps the parliamentary secretary can tell us what she thinks the word surge actually means. Passport Canada is at 48,000 passports this week. She just said that. They used to do more than 90,000 before COVID. So I've got a few simple questions. How many passports are in the queue? Can she explain why she's telling Canadians about a magical surge that isn't happening? And when can she give this House a straight answer so that Canadians don't have to line up at 3 a.m. for a basic government service?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member well knows, during the pandemic, many Canadians didn't renew their passports and many Canadians didn't bother to check what the updated times on their passports would be. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, the minister has been working closely with officials. As a matter of fact, she's at a processing centre in Mississauga today to see how we can increase capacity and efficiency. And may I mention, Mr. Speaker, that the 48,000 from this week is a 10% increase from last week, so that week over week we are working with Service Canada and passport teams to increase efficiencies. Thank you.
Honourable member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are being told to go in person to Passport passport office if they have to travel within 45 days. So Tia took time off work and made a 5-hour drive to get to Service Canada's passport office in Edmonton. She lined up at 4:30 in the morning and had proof of imminent travel, but was triaged out of the line because she wasn't deemed urgent enough. So in total, 10 hours of driving, a hotel bill, time off work, and no passport. Folks living in my riding and in rural areas across Canada can't just whip into a passport office on a whim. So when will the minister fix this passport chaos?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Service Canada and Passport Canada employees are working closely in teams to ensure that measures are taken to serve Canadians to export passport services. Those who are coming to Passport Canada services centres within 45 days of travel are encouraged to put their applications in person and are ensured that their passports will be processed efficiently. As the member knows, as we've worked with her and many other members in this House, those who have imminent travel do have an ability to work closely with the minister to ensure that their documents are received to them on time. Thank you.
L'honorable député de la...
The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the leaders of the Francophonie Festival in Montreal tried to justify the Anglicization of their workplace, saying that it increased diversity and inclusion. That's absurd, but it's a frequent mistake within the federal government. The official languages commissioner said that this was a sign of slippage. He said that on the contrary, there is complementarity between official languages and diversity. There are two ways to be more inclusive. Mr. Speaker, does the minister agree that it is a mistake to claim that we can be more inclusive by pushing French aside? The Honourable Minister of Official Languages. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Once again, Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. Our objectives are very clear, and we recognize that French is in decline in North America, including Canada, and that is why we are tabling an ambitious bill in order to protect the I'd just like to interrupt for a moment. It's very hard to hear the answer from here, and so I can't even imagine how hard it is in some parts of the House. I'd like to ask the minister to start over. I'm sure the Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île wants to hear the answer. The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. As I've said before, we want to protect and promote our beautiful French language throughout Canada. We recognize that French is in decline in North America, including Canada, and that is why we are bringing forward an ambitious bill to do our fair share in protecting and promoting the French language throughout the country. I hope opposition members will work with us in order to adopt C-13 as soon as possible. The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to presenting French as an obstacle to diversity, well, we've seen that at the highest levels because the Prime Minister appointed a Governor-General who does not speak French, and his government is going before the courts to impose a Lieutenant Governor who doesn't speak French on New Brunswick. The Prime Minister is the first one to push French aside on behalf of diversity, as if French couldn't include diversity. Does the minister support this idea that any form of diversity is more important than French? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. We are a government that understands that French is in decline in North America, including here, and I'd like to ask opposition members, especially the Bloc Québécois, to collaborate with us to get this bill passed as soon as possible. We need to do everything we can to protect and promote French, and so we need to work together to get this ambitious bill passed as soon as possible.
For Foothills.
Thanks to the Liberals, Canada will be the first jurisdiction in the world to put warning labels on ground beef and pork. Imposing these warning labels means a single ingredient, wholesome protein that most Canadian families rely on will be unaffordable. How nonsensical is this? They are putting a warning label despite the fact once this food is cooked, it does not exceed the Liberals' self-imposed limit on saturated fats. So, how many doctors raised concerns with Health Canada that too many Canadians were eating raw beef and pork that warranted these ridiculous and unwarranted warning labels that are punishing Canadian farmers and consumers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary
my colleague opposite, we are concerned about the rising rates of chronic diseases in Canada, and last week being Men's Health Week, where we talked about in this House how a disproportionately high number of men are dying from chronic diseases. I think we can all agree that more information at the grocery store is a good thing. 2 in 5 adults currently report having at least one of the 10 most common chronic disease, Mr. Speaker, and that is unacceptable. These labels are widely recognized by health organizations in the scientific community as an effective tool to help counteract the rising rates of diet-related chronic illness. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we agree that more information is always a good thing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Bow River.
Mr. Speaker, many of my constituents are aghast and angry that Health Canada chose to attack healthy, nutritious, protein and iron-rich food products like ground beef and pork with a warning label, and added labeling costs to the industry we pass down to the consumers. But Health Canada doesn't seem to care about increased costs. Health Canada should be concerned with keeping Canadians healthy, not adding to the grocery bills. Will the minister ensure Health Canada drops this damaging, expensive, unnecessary, ideological-driven warning label?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, on this side of the House, we will always prioritize Canadians' health based on scientific evidence. These labels are widely recognized as a good tool to support Canadians as they make good decisions at the grocery store. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. Canadians will still produce and purchase ground meat. However, they now have a choice to make and an informed decision to limit their saturated fat consumption. Our government is committed to protecting the health of Canadians, to continue our work in the food industry to further reduce sodium and fats in the foods they purchase. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, I was in Inuvik, Northwest Territories last week where 2 liters of orange juice is $21.20. A box of Kraft Dinner is $3.09. Wow. Ground beef is almost $20 a kilogram. Wow. A 2-pack of ketchup is $24. Regular fuel is $2.60 a liter, and residents' gas bills are over $1,000 a month. When will this government wake up that its high inflation, high taxation is making living in the North almost impossible?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for that very important question. All Canadians, regardless of where they live, should have access to affordable and nutritious food, and that's why in Budget 21 we expanded Nutrition North with $170 million in funding in collaboration with Indigenous partners to address food insecurity in the North. To offset the financial burden caused by COVID, we also announced $25 million in support for Nutrition North. Mr. Speaker, we realize there's a lot of work that we have to do, but we feel we are going in the right direction.
We are. Good job.
Honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ever since the Supreme Court ruling on the extreme intoxication defense, I've seen that many people around me, especially women and girls, are concerned. They are seeing many contradictory messages on social media. Can the Minister of Justice reassure Canadians about the extreme intoxication defense? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for Saint Laurent for her question and her interest in this important issue. I'd like to clarify an important point. Being intoxicated is not a defense for criminal offenses like sexual assault. That was the law before the Supreme Court ruling, and it is still the law today. With C-28, we will amend the criminal code so that in rare cases of extreme intoxication, someone who is in a state of self-induced extreme intoxication can be held criminally responsible. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to build a more effective and equitable justice system. A system that is worthy of victims' trust. Thank you.
Député de Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, Hockey Canada got $14 million in federal funding. In 2018, the Minister of Sports at the time stated that organizations must report allegations of abuse or harassment, or else they will lose their federal funding. And in fact, such types of allegations must never not be reported. Does the Minister intend to review the funding granted to Hockey Canada? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to start by saying that as a woman and former athlete, I was horrified and disgusted when I read about the allegations against Hockey Canada players in the media. A current financial audit on Hockey Canada's spending is examining the use of public funds. We will not tolerate, whatever the sum granted to Hockey Canada, we will not tolerate that money used for other things than what is in the agreement. We will not allow that type of spending to take place, and if the agreement is not respected, we will take appropriate measures.
Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have been shaken by reports of Hockey Canada's involvement in alleged sexual assaults and cover-ups. Hockey Canada is an organization that received $8.3 million from the federal government last year, paid no income tax despite having a surplus of $13.2 million. What action has the government taken to ensure sports organizations receiving federal funds, grants and contributions are taking real action to prevent sexual assaults, harassment and cover-ups?
The Honourable Minister of Sport.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by saying that I was absolutely horrified and disgusted when I read the stories in the newspapers. As a woman and an ex-athlete, I want Hockey Canada to answer all the legitimate questions around their actions. A financial audit is currently underway to shed light on Hockey Canada's spending and use of public money. We will not tolerate that any amount of money was spent on anything other than what was agreed in the contribution agreement between Sport Canada and Hockey Canada. If the agreement has not been respected, we will then take appropriate actions.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, last week there was a landslide in my riding, in La Baie. A residence was destroyed. Fortunately, there was no loss of life. Currently, we are on high alert because there may be other landslides. Currently, 80 families have been evacuated. It is a critical situation. People need to feel supported. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know whether the Minister will be there and ready to collaborate if the Government of Quebec asks for help.
Emergency preparedness.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank my friend from Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord for his question and the conversation we had about making sure that the Government of Canada is there to serve the people affected by the landslides in Saguenay. I want to assure him in this House that our officials are engaged with our provincial counterparts as the situation evolves. We stand ready to provide federal assistance when it is required by the people of Saguenay and the people of Quebec. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, today marks another step in easing restrictions at the border, including dropping the vaccine mandate from outbound and domestic flights. This is certainly welcome news for the tourism industry, both in the Yukon, Canada's greatest tourism destination, and around the country, as we see the tourism sector begin to recover after 2 years of struggle. Tourists are on the move once more. Can the Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance tell this House how our government is supporting the tourism sector?
Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague from Yukon for his question and his exceptional work on the file. Mr. Speaker, unlike the side opposite of this House, our government has supported the tourism sector right from the beginning. We invested $23 billion to make sure that the tourism sector could come roaring back after the pandemic. The Conservatives opposed us at every single stop. Mr. Speaker, we're sitting down with stakeholders and people across the sector.
I happen to be sitting next to someone who has a very loud voice, and I'm sure he doesn't want me to identify him. I'm going to ask him just to keep it down so we can hear the answer, and so that I can hear the answer as well. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to again thank my honourable colleague from Yukon for his question and his exceptional work on the file. And unlike the other side of this House, our government has supported the tourism sector through the pandemic, $23 billion in investments so that the sector could come roaring back. The Conservatives opposed us every step of the way. We are now meeting with stakeholders across the country to build a federal tourism growth strategy. We're going to make sure that the tourism sector comes roaring back and that we welcome the world to Canada. The Conservatives don't like it, but we do, and so does the tourism sector. Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are worried about plastic pollution. They want progress on banning single-use items to keep our coastlines clear and to protect human health. The Liberals broke their promise to ban single-use items by 2021, and now the proposed ban covers less than 1% of plastics. It doesn't even include items like coffee cups, lids, cigarette butts, and other harmful plastics. Plastic pollution is threatening our oceans, our wildlife, and our health. Will the minister start showing some environmental leadership and expand the ban on single-use plastics?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we promised Canadians we would deliver a ban on single-use plastics, and today that's exactly what we have done. By the end of the year, you will not be able to manufacture or import these harmful plastics. After that, businesses will begin offering the sustainable solutions that Canadians want. We are taking a historic step forward, and with these new regulations, we are reducing plastic pollution and keeping our communities and the places we love clean for now and future generations.
Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Mr. Speaker, the latest IPCC report advanced the clock on too late. To have any hope of holding to 1.5 degrees or even 2, global emissions must peak before 2025 and drop rapidly from there to roughly in half by 2030. Net zero by 2050 will not make any difference without deep cuts before 2025. We are 30 months from too late. When we get back here in September, we'll have 28 months. Yet this government continues to approve fossil fuel expansion. Well, who would care in this place to explain this madness?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we tabled an emissions reductions plan that is ambitious and it's achievable. It goes by sector to create a path for Canadians to reach our 2030 climate projections. It's a detailed plan that goes through each economic sector, and it has been supported by environmental groups right across our country. We are working very hard and take this issue very seriously. We will continue to do what it needs to reach our emission reductions.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons. I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable John Hogan, Minister of Justice and Public Safety and Attorney General for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
It being 3:12, pursuant to order made on Thursday, November 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded divisions on the motions at report stage of Bill C-11.
Members.
Call in the members.